Hey guys, it's John here from Sonic Drive Studio. I hope you're all doing great. Today's video will be pretty straightforward and interesting and definitely fun, as we'll be comparing my Marshall SC20H or Studio Classic or JCM 800 Studio to my Wangs 2204HW. The Marshall is a very recent model of that classic JCM 800, either the 2204 or 2203 sound. I'm not exactly sure which one of those two, and I'm not sure if that even matters at all sound-wise, because I'm no Marshall expert. But it's a compact 20-watt amplifier, so it obviously has a different power amp than those old, large JCM 800 heads. It's a very portable amplifier with a nice and compact size, and it's also fairly lightweight, which probably has to do with the fact that this amplifier has quite small transformers in it. The SC20H has two EL34s in the power section, as well as three 12AX7s in the preamp section. Just a very simple and elegant British tone monster. We also have a low and high sensitivity input, and that gives you a bit more flexibility when it comes to the tones. I always use the low sensitivity input for clean tones, and I always use the high sensitivity input for crunch tones or boosted high gain tones. It's also worth noting that this amplifier has an effects loop on the back and also a foot switch jack to turn the effects loop on or off. I'm not a very technical person when it comes to tube amplifiers, but I do know that this amplifier has PCB inside with some integrated circuits on it, or ICs, or so I've been told. This amp was either made or assembled in the UK, I'm not entirely sure, but there's a very big chance that all the parts in this amplifier were made abroad. And if you were to buy one of these in Europe right now, it would probably cost you around 820 euros. And if you were to buy one of these in the United States as of right now, it would cost you around $1,400. So that's quite a big price difference there. The Wangs 2204HW is basically a hand-wired version of the old Marshall JCM 800 2204. This amp was built in China by the family-run Wong's custom shop. And these amps are made by hand with a lot of love and care. I've already made a full demo and review video, and I'll put a link up here and down here as well in case you're interested. And I'm also going to put some nice discount codes for the Wangs amplifiers in the description below. Anyway, so this is a 50-watt full tube amplifier with the same tube types as the SC20H. We've got two EL34s in the power section and three 12AX7s in the preamp section. One of the main differences between the Wangs and the Marshall is the fact that the Wangs was made by hand, and so hand-wired, and the Marshall has PCB inside. Now, to what extent that all makes a difference, I'm not sure, but I'll leave that up to you. The transformers in this amplifier are much larger, so this amplifier definitely has some more weight to it. The size of the head shell is about the same though, so they are both very portable amplifiers. All the controls and inputs on the Wangs are exactly the same as the Marshall, but note that the Wangs does not have an FX loop or a foot switch jack. If you order one of these right now via the Wangs website, it will cost you about 850 euros, and note that they do ship worldwide. So now let's find out how they differ in sound when recorded. I obviously can't show you how they feel or sound in the room, or how they differ in that regard, but this comparison should definitely give you a good idea of the tonal differences between these amplifiers. I will say up front though that the Wangs 2204 definitely is quite a bit louder than the Marshall SC20H. That probably doesn't come as a surprise, but it's definitely worth noting. Let's start with some clean tones with my Gibson Les Paul Classic on the neck pickup, going into the low sensitivity inputs. Every single tone in this video will be going through the same Ownhammer impulse response from the Revolution series IRs, and that is the forward 3 mix from the 412 MRCB V30-EN1 cabinet, and that is based on a 4x12 checkerboard Marshall cabinet loaded with Celestion Vintage 30s made in the UK. And I will match the settings on both amplifiers for each segment. Let's go. Very interesting. And now that same piece again, but this time with the guitars isolated, so with the drums and bass turned off. Here we go. Very nice. The differences between both amps seem to be very subtle in this case, but I think the Marshall sounds a little bit more compressed overall. Now let's try some rock crunch tones with the high sensitivity input, also using my Gibson Les Paul Classic, but this time on the bridge pickup. I will be using that same Ownhammer impulse response again, and of course I will match the settings of the amplifiers again. Alright, here we go. Very nice, both amps sounded pretty cool. Now let's check out that same segment again, but this time again with the guitars isolated. Very interesting. The tonal differences between the amplifiers are becoming much clearer now. The SC20H definitely sounds a bit more compressed and sort of congested. It's a very nice sound, but it's definitely not the same. The Wangs sounded a bit more open and dynamic overall, and perhaps a little bit brighter as well. A lot of this obviously has to do with the 20 watts versus the 50 watts, and also probably the size of the transformers inside of the amplifiers. Now let's try out the amplifiers with a boosted high gain metal tone. I will boost both amps with my Maxon OD808 drive pedal into the high sensitivity inputs. And note that I tweaked the amp settings a little bit to suit these tones a little bit better. And of course the amp and pedal settings will remain the same between both amplifiers. For these tones I'll be using my ESP LTD NW44 guitar with that same Ownhammer impulse response, of course. Here we go. Very nice and chunky. Now the isolated guitars again. Here we go. Okay, that was very interesting. Again, the Marshall just sounded a little bit more congested and compressed, and you will notice this probably especially with the palm muted notes. It's a great sounding little amp though, and I really like what it does. It also seems to have a little bit more gain on tap than the Wangs, but that's a very subtle difference. Overall, the Wangs seems to have a more clear and dynamic sound. It's a bit bigger sounding. The palm muted notes seem to hold together better, and the overall amp seems to have a bit more heft to the sound overall. So both amplifiers are very cool, but they're definitely not the same. So that was it for this comparison. What did you think of the differences? And if you had to choose one, which one would you go for? I guess for kind of low-level playing, practicing and recording, the Marshall works just fine. It sounds great and it performs well. However, the Wangs definitely seems to hold up better at high levels. So for gigging and loud playing, I would definitely recommend the Wangs, even if it doesn't carry that Marshall name. It definitely has more headroom and more balls, so it's just a bigger sound overall. But of course, these amplifiers kind of sound similar, since these were based on the same type of amps. Perhaps the pricing would also make a difference to you, and perhaps even the way that they were built. Of course, I would love to know your thoughts, so do let me know in the comments down below. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please drop a like and subscribe to the channel along with the notification bell, as that really helps me out. You can also follow Sonic Drive Studio on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Cheers!